Travis, Regenesis Permaculture, Costa Rica. This is part 3 of our Syntropic Permaculture series. Today we're going to look at Tropical Consortium case study. I'm going to give you a brief overview and then we're going to dive into the details. First, we're going to go through the design criteria and context. Then we'll take a look at the row spacing and layout. And then we're going to go deep into the consortium. We're going to look at the plants and how they relate with one another, how they unfold through time, from the placenta to the climax. So here we are in Costa Rica, the southern Pacific. We're at about 500 meters of elevation. We'll be working in the typical degraded cattle pasture on a slight slope. This is on a family's homestead. So we'll be planting near the house. It's going to border on permaculture zones 2 and 3. We're working towards food security in the short, mid, and long term, with emphasis on plant oils and butters for consumption as well as for medicines. We want to grow all the greens that the family, friends, and neighbors can eat. We also want to be providing chicken food to free ourselves from the industrial systems. We want to have an emphasis on native plants. We'll have a healthy balance with exotics. So note on eucalyptus, we may put some eucalyptus in. We're currently working on sourcing them here in Costa Rica, looking at what species are available. We're going to create a palm overstory, primarily coconuts, but also rows of spineless pehivae for both the fruit as well as the heart of palm. In the A rows, we're going to plant teak trees as a hardwood timber. Again, it's not native, it's considered allelopathic, that it sterilizes the soil, but like eucalyptus, we believe that the benefits of the diversity of the syntropic system will far outweigh any negative impacts. Choosing teak because it's a fast-growing hardwood that's resistant to the insects here. In addition to the teak hardwood, we're going to also grow hardwood footers. These primarily Madero Negro or Gliricidia and Guachipilin, 2 native trees typically used in living fence posts. We'll be using those in the trellis rows. And the hardwood footers that they provide in 20 years are waterproof, are termite proof, can be buried in the soil and support other structures built on top of them. On each edge of the tree rows, we'll have permanent trellis rows that will be used for alley cropping. The management will be zone 3, zone 2 as we get closer to the house. And along the access trails, we want dwarf pipas and lots of mulberries. Here's a big picture view of what the system's going to look like 20 years in the future. You can see we have the tree rows in the center with the emergent palms coming out to the A rows, prioritizing jackfruit, breadfruit, and avocados. And then on each of those edges, trellis rows with the living fence posts, pehivae, palmito. And at the bottom, you can see the spacing between the tree rows, as well as the paths and the support species. Throughout the system, there's 4 meters between each tree row, and the tree rows are planted 5 meter centers. So 4 meters in between the rows, and from center of a tree row to the next center, it's 5 meters. And here's a more detailed view of the planting, the plant spacing. We covered this in part 2, and now we're going to move into the consortium. The A rows and the B rows have different plantings, but for the placenta, the first year of planting, they're basically the same. So for this video, we're going to treat them as the same. And here it is on the screen, year 1, the placenta. As we go through this, we're going to start in the left, the emergent strata, and work down the column. And then we'll move over in time. Placenta A in the emergent layer. We have job steer, amaranth, and sesame. These 3 grains begin producing in 3 months. They're great people feed, great chicken feed. The job steer is a perennial, and we'll harvest it a couple years into the future. This job steer has a soft shell. It's not the one used in jewelry. Much easier to grow than corn and very similar nutrient profile. In drier regions, we might want to substitute sorghum. Amaranth in the amaranth family, most of them edible, either the leaves, flower, seed, or the tender stems as vegetables. Find whatever varieties you can, experiment with them. And the sesame is perhaps my favorite annual crop. Very easy to grow, very easy to process, great people food, great bird food, as well provides edible leaf in the short term. At the high strata, we're going to be picking mulberries, our heirloom giant cherry tomato, the delicious and satisfying cucamelon, and a vegetable okra. For the medium strata, one of my favorite weeds, the stingless nettles, here in Costa Rica known as ortiguilla, highly nutritious, very easy to grow. And we'll be planting a mix of a black bean and a mung bean. At the low strata, because we're close to the house, we're going to plant this really dense with ground covers. Including the Okinawa spinach, a beautiful spinach, purple on one side, very high in antioxidants, tastes very much like a sea vegetable or seaweed. Gotukola, a medicinal herb, known adaptogen, great for the functioning of the central nervous system. And sweet potato. We'll get a little harvest of the roots in the system, but primarily we'll be getting leaves and material for planting in the alley rows next year. Placenta 2 from 6 months to a year in the future. We'll be harvesting pigeon pea, a seed variety of okra, and castor bean. The Job's tier will have shifted down to the high strata, along with some yucca or cassava and tomatoes and mulberries. The medium strata will still be getting lots of the stingless nettles, and also canavalia will be coming up. Canavalia we put in because it's a very hardy legume, nitrogen fixer. It's also a control for the leafcutter ants and a backup superfood. And at the low strata, continue with the Okinawa spinach, the gotukola. We'll be harvesting some of the sweet leaf, the Aztec sweet leaf. It's very similar to stevia. And the nyampi, the local tuber, very similar to taro root, which also has edible leaves. Now we're going to move on to the A row. And again, in the system, there are 2 outer A rows prioritizing the jackfruit, breadfruit, and avocado, as well as the teak trees will be there. They're bordered on the outside by the alley cropping rows. They both snugly hug B row with the emergent palm and more shade-tolerant species. And going to the early secondary phase, this is 2 to 3 years in the future. At the emergent level, we'll be harvesting papaya, moringa, as well as pruning, beginning to take out some of the balsa trees. We'll still be getting some harvest of yucca, Job's tier, and plenty of banana we'll be filling in. At the medium strata, we'll still have some mulberry, and the katuk and the bele hibiscus will be providing perennial greens for the whole neighborhood. The katuk and the bele are many people's favorite greens here, and the low strata remains unchanged. In the mid-secondary stage, 3 to 5 years in the future, we'll be harvesting, pruning, thinning the ice cream beans, as well as the balsa. At the high strata, we'll be harvesting the French peanut, Pachira glabra. There's a lot of confusion online between Pachira glabra and Pachira aquatica. They're both great. The glabra is smaller tree, can eat the peanuts raw, big peanuts. And here it also seems to have a longer production season. Mulberry and katuk will be providing in the understory. The bele we've seen after 2-3 years tends to weaken, disappear. And at the low strata, we'll be getting good harvest of the cacao. This is criollo varieties of cacao that we planted directly by seed, as well as the gotukola, sweet leaf. And throughout this whole system, if we want to continue harvesting ginger and turmeric in the understory, we can. Moving forward, the late secondary, 6 to 12 years in the future, we'll have carao as the emergent. Carao, very similar to carob, a native medicinal legume, great for strengthening the blood, provides a light shade. And at the high strata, this is the priority of this row, the breadfruit, jackfruit, and avocado. Throughout the system, we'll plant a jackfruit, breadfruit, avocado, 6 meters in between. From the medium strata, we'll be getting lots of French peanut that'll weave in and around the jackfruit, breadfruit, and avocado. And the low strata continues unchanged. The climax of the system, 12, 20 years into the future and beyond, we'll be harvesting the timber trees, both cenicero, a native legume, and the teak trees. And as we take those out, the breadfruit, jackfruit, and avocado will get a growth pulse and provide lots of happiness and abundance. Now we're going to go through the B row that's sandwiched in between the 2 outer A rows. The early secondary, 2 to 3 years. At the emergent level, we have ice cream bean, balsa, and biriba. Biriba or Rollinia deliciosa, an amazing custard fruit, very fast producing tree, and also tends to be kind of short-lived. We're going to sandwich one in our row and enjoy its fruits for several years before we take it out and allow for other species to come in. The high strata, we'll still be getting some Job's tier. Plantain is the emphasis in this row at this point. The medium strata, the mulberries, and the perennial greens that we've chosen for this row are the chaya, tree spinach, sometimes called chicasquil, and the tropical stinging nettles. the leaves are this big. Amazing. Again, highly nutritious for people, animal feed, and for the compost. The lower strata, the Okinawa spinach, we'll have the true taro or malanga. And at this point, we'll have lots of turmeric and ginger in this center row. The mid-secondary, from 3 to 5 years in the future, same ice cream bean balsa will be taking out, pruning as needed, harvesting the last of our bidibas. At the high strata, lots of plantain and the patatste. This is a native cacao species, sometimes called white cacao in Peru, macambo. It's a great high, medium species, can grow tall and drop the fruits. We can just gather them. Doesn't have all the medicinal properties as cacao, but it's higher in fat content. And rumor has it the preferred cacao drink of the indigenous was a mix of the cacao and the patatste. As the shade comes in, we'll still be getting lots of stinging nettles and chaya. And at the low strata, we're going to be harvesting our first cardamom and black pepper. The late secondary, 6 to 12 years in the future, we'll be harvesting, taking out the dragon's blood, taragua, and bread nut, another artocarpus, relative of breadfruit and jackfruit. When we planted this 6 to 12 years ago, we planted both the bidiba and the bread nut right together in the center between the coconuts. So they grew together. In the beginning, we pruned to favor the bidiba, and as its production began to decline and the bread nut filled the space, we took the bidiba out and allowed this bread nut to provide generous abundance for 6, 15 years into the future. And underneath that big, beautiful bread nut, we have the Gustavia superba and the patatste dropping their delicious, oily fruits and seeds. We'll be harvesting and taking out dragon's blood, or targua. This dragon's blood provides a medicine very high in antioxidants. It's great for dental health as well as the digestive system, also sealing cuts, and it's a very well-known and documented aid for people healing cancer. The high strata, one of my close friends, Gustavia superba. This I met and fell in love with in Panama. It's a beautiful, high, medium, shade-tolerant species. Provides a small squash-like fruit, very high in oil and protein, sometimes known as sky lotus or membrillo in Panama. And the patatste will be holding this high strata in the center row. Underneath them, we'll be harvesting our criollo lime, lemon, at least 3, maybe 4 different species, so that we can have nice lemon-like citrus for most of the year. And at the low strata, cardamom, black pepper, and any of the other gotu-kola, sweet leaf, ginger, turmeric that we want to have in there. The climax, 12, 20 years into the future, we'll be happily harvesting the coconuts. Here we're planting local chocuano varieties, the most productive, big coconut, lots of water, and the rest of the strata continue as before. And now a quick peek at the trellis rows. You can see the Pehivae palmito. We're going to plant spineless varieties. And throughout the trellis rows, they'll be planted every 6 meters apart. So we managed to have 1, maybe 2 shoots grow tall to provide the fruits. And all the younger shoots will be for heart of palm or palmito. In between those Pehivae, every 1.5 meters, we'll have either guachipilin or madero negro as the living trellis, where we can do our alley cropping. And in each of these 2 trellis rows, on the eastern side, we're going to plant a row of pineapples every 33 centimeters. And there you have it. Hope you found this valuable. Hope you feel inspired and can apply this in your forest garden, at your home, on your homestead. Reach out, leave questions, feedback in the comment section. We'll keep an eye on it and get back to you to the best of our ability. Make sure you like, share, love, follow, subscribe. If you're here in Costa Rica and you want support in establishing, managing your Syntropic Forest Garden, reach out. We can either set up a workshop or you can look at our coaching packages so we can empower you and your team and provide the best detailed system for your specific microclimate and bioregion. We're here. We're happy to support you on your journey to fulfillment and regenerative living. Because now is not the time to reduce our impact on the planet. Rather, it's the time that we maximize our impact. I'm Travis. It's Regenesis Permaculture, Costa Rica. Be well.